There's a specific kind of exhaustion that settles in your bones during college finals week. It's a toxic cocktail of sleep deprivation, caffeine jitters, and the metallic taste of fear. For me, an engineering student, it was a week of wrestling with thermodynamics and fluid dynamics, concepts that govern the physical world with cold, impartial logic. I found comfort in that logic. In engineering, things were either right or wrong. A bridge either stands or it falls. There's no favoritism in physics. The numbers don't lie. I clung to that certainty because my own world, the world of my family, was built on the shakiest of foundations. It was a structure governed not by logic, but by a baffling and painful emotional calculus that I could never seem to solve. To understand my family, you have to understand the dynamic of the sun and the shadow. My older brother, Ethan, was the sun. He was the golden child, the one around whom our entire family universe orbited. He was effortlessly charming, athletically gifted, and skated through life with a C average and a movie star smile. Everything he touched turned to gold, or at least, my parents gilded it for him. When he turned 16, a gleaming, cherry-red Ford Mustang appeared in the driveway, a gift for simply existing. When I turned 16, I was handed a bus schedule and told that a part-time job builds character. When Ethan wanted to join the ski team, my parents dropped thousands on gear and weekend trips to Vermont. When I wanted to join the robotics club, I was told it was too expensive and that I should focus on my real studies. I was the shadow, quiet, studious, perpetually trying to earn the warmth that was so freely given to him. I wasn't a problem child. I got straight A's. I followed the rules. I never asked for much. I was just there, an afterthought, a satellite in a low, distant orbit around the brilliant star that was my brother. But this year was supposed to be different. This year held a single, shimmering spark of hope. My 21st birthday, a milestone, and more importantly, my grandmother, Margaret, had intervened. My grandma Margaret is not a woman you say no to. She's a force of nature, a matriarch from an older, tougher generation, with eyes that see right through you and a heart fiercely loyal to the underdog. She was the only person in my life who ever made me feel seen. A few months ago, on a visit, she had sat my parents down in their own living room. I wasn't there, but she recounted the conversation to me later with grim satisfaction. Amelia is turning 21, she had announced, not asked. That girl has worked her fingers to the bone her entire life and has never once been properly celebrated. You are going to throw her a party, a real party, not a sad little cake in the kitchen. Then, she opened her purse and took out a thick envelope. She placed it on the coffee table with a decisive thud. "Here is $3,000, she said, her voice leaving no room for argument. "This is not for bills. It is not for groceries. It is for your daughter. You will use this to hire a caterer, rent a nice space if you need to, and invite all of her friends. You will make her feel, for one day, like she is the most important person in the world. Do you understand me?" $3,000. It was an astronomical sum. It was more than a party. It was a statement. It was my grandmother buying me the one thing I had always craved, a moment in the sun. For weeks, that thought was the fuel that got me through my all-night study sessions. The thought of walking into a room full of my friends, of seeing a banner that said "Happy Birthday, Amelia," of my parents, for once, standing proudly beside me. The hope was so bright it was almost painful. It was the hope that this party, this one extravagant gesture, could somehow reset the broken scales of our family. So as I drove the 3 hours home from campus, my final exam a crumpled ball of relief in my backpack, I let myself feel it. I let the exhaustion be replaced by a giddy, nervous anticipation. I was finally coming home to my celebration, my moment. The first sign that something was wrong was the silence. I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home just as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. I'd expected something. A car I didn't recognize in the driveway. Maybe a few stray balloons tied to the mailbox. The sound of music and laughter spilling out from inside. But there was nothing. The house was dark, except for the faint blue glow of the television flickering in the living room. It was as quiet as a tomb. A knot of dread tightened in my stomach, but I pushed it down. Maybe it's a surprise, I told myself, my heart thumping a hopeful, stupid rhythm. Maybe they're all inside, waiting to jump out. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The air was still and cool, smelling of nothing but old furniture and dust. No aroma of catered food. No festive energy. Just my parents, sitting on the couch like two statues, bathed in the cold light of a nature documentary. They looked up as I entered, their expressions not of excitement, but of mild annoyance at having their program interrupted. "Oh, you're home," my mom said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah, I just finished my last final," I said, trying to keep my voice light. I dropped my heavy backpack by the door. "So, what's the plan? Is the party tonight? Tomorrow?" My dad cleared his throat and picked up the remote, turning the volume down on a segment about deep-sea fish. He wouldn't look at me. It was my mom who spoke. "About that," she said, her voice flat and devoid of emotion. "We had to cancel the party." The words hit me with a physical force, knocking the air from my lungs. "Cancel? What? What do you mean? You canceled it. Why?" "Well, something came up," she said vaguely, turning her attention back to the television. "Something came up," I repeated, my voice rising with disbelief. "What could possibly come up?" "Grandma gave you the money weeks ago. My friends were all planning to come," I told them. And that's when my father finally spoke, his voice low and gruff, as if he were discussing a minor inconvenience, like a leaky faucet. "Your brother needed the money," he said. I stared at him, uncomprehending. "Ethan? What does Ethan have to do with my birthday party?" My mother sighed, a long, exasperated sound, as if I were a particularly slow child. "Honestly, Amelia, Ethan's been working so hard lately. His friends invited him on a last-minute trip to Cancun for spring break. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for him to de-stress. He deserved a break." The room began to spin. The walls seemed to pulse in and out. They were talking, but the sound was muffled, as if coming from underwater. "Cancun. He deserved a break. So you took my birthday money?" I whispered. The words felt like shards of glass in my throat. "You took the $3,000 from Grandma for my 21st birthday party, and you gave it to Ethan so he could go on vacation. Don't be so dramatic," my mom snapped, her voice suddenly sharp. "It wasn't your money. It was our money, and we decided how best to use it for the family. Ethan needed it. You didn't need a party." The cruelty of it was breathtaking. But they weren't done. The final, devastating blow was yet to come. "What did you tell my friends?" I asked, my voice trembling. "They all think there's a party." My dad shifted uncomfortably on the couch. "We handled it," He mumbled. How? I pressed. How did you handle it? My mother looked me dead in the eye, her expression cold as ice. We called your friend Sarah, the one who was organizing the carpool. We told her you were having some personal issues, that you were emotionally unstable from the stress of school, and that you weren't up for seeing anyone. We told her you needed space and asked her to let everyone else know the party was off. Personal issues. Emotionally unstable. They hadn't just stolen my party. They hadn't just given the money meant for me to my brother. They had actively, maliciously, sabotaged my friendships. They had painted me as fragile, as broken, to protect themselves from the simple inconvenience of having to admit what they had done. They had sacrificed my reputation to fund his vacation in that moment. Standing in the silent, dark living room, something inside me broke. It was the last, thin, hopeful thread connecting me to the fantasy that they might, one day, see me, that I might, one day, be enough. The thread didn't just fray, it vaporized. The hope didn't just die, it was murdered, and my parents were holding the knife. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I was beyond tears. A strange, glacial calm washed over me. I looked at these two people, my parents, and I didn't recognize them. Or rather, I recognized them for the first time for exactly what they were. I turned around without another word, picked up my heavy backpack, walked back out the front door, and closed it quietly behind me. I sat down on the cold concrete of the porch steps as true darkness fell, and I finally understood. There would be no party. There had never been a party for me, and there never would be. I don't know how long I sat on that porch step, wrapped in the cold night air. An hour, 2. Time had lost its meaning. I was suspended in a state of numb shock. The horrific conversation replaying in my mind like a looped nightmare. I had nowhere to go. Going back inside that house was impossible, but every other option felt equally daunting. Then, a pair of headlights sliced through the darkness, pulling into the driveway. It was a familiar, formidable, old Buick. My grandmother. My dad must have called her, probably complaining about my dramatic reaction. The car door opened, and Margaret emerged. Even in the dim porch light, I could see the storm gathering on her face. She didn't say a word to me at first. She strode up the steps with the determination of a general marching into battle. Unlocked the front door with the key she'd had for 30 years, and went inside. The door didn't close all the way. Through the crack, I heard her voice, low and dangerous. "Where is she?" Margaret demanded. I heard my mother's defensive tone. "She's outside pouting." "Honestly, Mom, she's being so dramatic about this." Dramatic? My grandmother's voice rose, laced with a fury I had never heard from her before. "You steal that child's money I gave you for a specific purpose. You give it to that layabout son of yours to go get drunk on a beach, and then you lie to her friends and call her unstable, and you think she's the one being dramatic. What is wrong with you, Carol?" "It was for the best," my dad mumbled. Ethan needs a boot in his backside and a job," Margaret roared. "That girl in there has never asked you for a single thing, while you have bent over backwards catering to his every whim your entire lives. You are pathetic, both of you." The door swung open again. Margaret stood there, her purse clutched in her hand like a weapon. Her eyes, when they found me, were filled not with pity, but with a fierce, protective anger. "Amelia, get your bag," she commanded. "You're coming with me." I didn't argue. I felt like a puppet whose strings had been cut, and she was the only one picking me up. I grabbed my backpack, followed her to the Buick, and sank into the plush passenger seat. As we pulled out of the driveway, I looked back at the house one last time. It looked like a stranger's home. The drive to her house was silent. Margaret's home was a small, tidy brick house on the other side of town, a place that always smelled of lemon polish and old books. It was my only real sanctuary as a child. She led me inside, sat me down at her kitchen table, and placed a mug of hot tea in my hands. Only then, in the warmth and safety of her kitchen, did the frozen dam inside me break. The sobs came, ugly and ragged, shaking my entire body. They were tears for the stolen party, yes, but also for the thousand smaller betrayals that had preceded it. For a lifetime of feeling invisible, Margaret let me cry until I was empty. She just sat with me, her hand resting on my arm. When I was finally quiet, hiccuping and exhausted, she spoke, her voice soft but heavy with purpose. "There's something you need to know, Amelia," she said. "Something I probably should have told you years ago. It's not an excuse for how they behave. There's no excuse, but it's the explanation." She took a deep breath. "Your parents, they didn't plan for you. Your mother had Ethan, and she thought she was done. He was her perfect, easy baby. Then, a few years later, she found out she was pregnant with you. She didn't want another child. She resented it." And then, Margaret continued, her gaze fixed on a distant point. "You were a very difficult birth. It was long, dangerous. Your mother almost died. And after you were born, she never bonded with you. The doctors called it postpartum depression, but it was more than that. It was a wall of resentment she put up, and she never took it down. She looks at you, and she sees the child she never wanted, the difficult birth, the disruption to her perfect life with her golden son. Your father, being the weak man that he is, just followed her lead. It was easier than fighting for you." The story settled over me, not with a crash, but with a slow, dawning, and horrifying clarity. It was like finding the missing page of a book I'd been reading my whole life. My entire existence, my status as the family shadow, wasn't because of something I had done, or something I lacked. It was a story that had been written before I could even speak. I wasn't unlovable. I was simply, from the moment of my conception, unwanted. The pain of that realization was immense, but underneath it was something else, a strange and terrible liberation. It wasn't my fault. I lived with my grandmother for the rest of that summer. It was a period of quiet healing. She treated me not as a burden, but as a cherished guest. We had dinner together every night. She would ask me about my internship, a prestigious summer position at an aerospace firm that I had earned on my own merit, and she would listen, truly listen, as I talked about designing turbine blades and running stress simulations. At work, I was blossoming. For the first time, I was in an environment where my skills were not just acknowledged, but valued. My boss, a brilliant engineer named Dr. Evans, praised my meticulous work. My colleagues treated me as a peer. I was Amelia, the sharp young intern who was great with CAD software. I wasn't Ethan's sister. I wasn't the problem child. I was just me. And it turned out that was more than enough. Of course, my family couldn't stand my absence. My withdrawal from their orbit created a gravitational imbalance. The pressure campaign began. First, it was my mother, with texts that dripped with fox concern and venom. "I hope you're happy, Amelia. You've torn this family apart. Your grandmother has brainwashed you. You need to come home where you belong." When I didn't respond, they deployed the flying monkeys, aunts and uncles calling to tell me I was being selfish, that I was breaking my parents' hearts. That family is family, and I needed to forgive and forget. The climax came on a Sunday afternoon in August. I was sitting in Margaret's living room, reading, when a car screeched to a halt in the driveway. It was my parents' sedan, and my brother, Ethan, fresh from his Cancun tan, got out of the passenger seat. The three of them stormed up to the front door and began pounding on it. Margaret met them at the door, blocking the entrance like a sentinel. "You are not welcome in this house," she said, her voice like granite. "We are here to see our daughter." My father boomed, putting on a show of parental authority. "Mom, just let us talk to her," Ethan said, his voice slick with the charm he always used to get his way. "This has gone on long enough." From behind my grandmother, I found my voice. "No," I said, stepping forward so they could see me. "You can talk to me right here." This was it. The confrontation I had been dreading and, on some level, preparing for my entire life. "Amelia, this is ridiculous," my mother began. "You need to come home. Pack your things." "No," I said again. My voice was steady. The terrified girl from 2 months ago was gone. "I'm not going anywhere. This is my home now." "What did she say to you?" my dad demanded, glaring at Margaret. "What lies has she been feeding you?" "She told me the truth," I said, looking him straight in the eye. "Something you have never been capable of. You want to know why I won't come home? Because home is a place where you are supposed to feel safe, not a place where your birthday is stolen to fund a vacation. It's a place where you're supposed to be loved, not just tolerated." I turned to Ethan. He had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. "And you?" I said. "Did you have a good time in Cancun? Did you enjoy the drinks? The sun? Did you ever stop for 1 second to think that you were tanning on a beach, paid for by my one chance to feel special?" "No, of course you didn't. Because you've spent your entire life taking, and it never occurred to you to question where it all came from." "That's not fair," he mumbled. "Fair?" I let out a short, bitter laugh. "You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that you got a Mustang and I got a bus pass? Is it fair that your hobbies were an investment and mine were a waste of money? Is it fair that you stole my 21st birthday and I was branded emotionally unstable to cover your tracks? Don't you dare talk to me about fairness." I looked back at my parents, who were staring at me, utterly stunned. They had never heard me speak like this. The shadow had finally found its voice. "You didn't just cancel a party," I told them, my voice raw with the pain of a lifetime. "You confirmed everything I have always suspected. That I am second best. That I am an afterthought. That my worth is negotiable, and his is absolute. I'm done. I am done trying to earn my place at a table where I was never truly welcome." I stepped back from the door, standing beside my grandmother. "Now please leave." They stood there, for a moment, speechless, their faces a mixture of shock and fury. Then, defeated, they turned and walked back to their car. As they drove away, Margaret put her arm around my shoulders. I didn't cry this time. I felt light. The final battle had been fought, and I was still standing. The aftermath of the confrontation was a profound silence. The manipulative texts stopped. The phone calls from relatives ceased. It was as if by finally speaking the unvarnished truth, I had erected a wall they couldn't penetrate. They had no weapons left to use against me. A few weeks later, my grandmother asked me to sit Down with her at the kitchen table. She had a folder of official-looking documents in front of her. Amelia, she began, her tone serious. After what happened, I made some changes. I've met with my lawyer. I want you to know that I have amended my will. She pushed a document towards me. It was a copy of her last will and testament. This house, my savings, my investments, everything I have in this world will go to you, and you alone. She said quietly, your parents and your brother have been completely written out. I will not have my life's work, your grandfather's life's work, used to enable their toxicity and reward their behavior. It is for you, for your future, to give you the start in life they never would. I stared at the paper, at my name typed in black and white. It wasn't about the money. I had never expected anything from anyone. It was the gesture. It was the ultimate act of validation, of justice. It was Margaret, in her fiercely logical way, balancing the scales that had been tilted against me my entire life. The true impact of this, however, didn't become clear until about a month after that. My phone rang late one night. The caller ID said Ethan. My first instinct was to ignore it, but a morbid curiosity made me answer. Hello, Amelia. It was him. His voice was strained, stripped of its usual breezy confidence. Hey, can we talk? We're talking, I said coolly. He took a shaky breath. Look, things aren't great here. Dad lost some money in the market, and Mom's credit card debt it's bad. The thing is, Grandma told them what she did with the will. They're freaking out, Amelia. They were counting on that inheritance. I listened, my heart a cold, still stone in my chest. So I was thinking, he continued, his voice dropping into a wheedling, pleading tone I'd never heard from him. Maybe you could talk to her. For us, tell her she was wrong, that we're a family, that she's being unfair. If you could just convince her to change it back, it would really help us out. And there it was, the final, clarifying truth. He wasn't calling to apologize for the party. He wasn't calling to say he was sorry for a lifetime of taking while I went without. He was calling because the bank of Grandma was closed, and their golden boy, for the first time in his life, was facing the consequences of his family's choices. Their love for me, their desire for me to be part of the family, had always been conditional. And now, I knew the condition. My utility to them, and by extension, to him. I felt a wave of pity for him, but it was distant, like pity for a stranger in a sad movie. No, Ethan, I said. My voice was calm and final. There was no anger left, only a quiet, resolute finality. What? What do you mean? No, he sputtered. I mean, no, I repeated. I will not be talking to Grandma. Her decisions are her own, and your financial problems are your own. You are all adults. It's time you took responsibility for your own lives. You can't steal from me anymore. Not my money, not my reputation, and certainly not my future. I heard him start to protest, but I didn't wait to hear it. I pressed the end call button. I blocked his number. Then I blocked my parents' numbers. I sat there in the quiet of my new room, in my new life, and I felt the last, heavy chain break. I am free. It's a simple phrase, but it's a universe. I'm in my final year of university now, on a full scholarship that I earned myself. I've already accepted a job offer from the firm where I interned. I have friends who value my presence, not what they can get from me. I have my grandmother, my true north, my chosen family. Sometimes, when I'm working late in the engineering lab, I think about the concept of stress tests. You apply pressure to a structure to find its breaking point, to see where the inherent weaknesses are. My family was a poorly designed structure. The stolen party was simply the final stress test, the one that revealed the cracks and faults that had been there all along. It had to collapse, and from the rubble, I was able to walk away and start building something new, something strong, something sound, something built on a foundation of truth and self-worth. I realize now that family isn't just the one you are born into, it's the one you build. It's the people who choose to love you, who celebrate your victories, who show up for you, not because they have to, but because they want to. My name is Amelia, and for the first time in my life, I am stepping into a future that is entirely, beautifully, and logically my own.